So this is our last hour and our chance to talk a bit about practice. And maybe some of the thoughts you have on things you might want to practice the next 3 months. And we didn't go through a particular list of things. I think you have a pretty good idea, though. We could practice around our precepts, our 5 precepts or 8 precepts. We could practice some aspect that we want to pay attention to around the Noble Eightfold Path. There could be some kind of determination made around meditation practice, if you like, or study, or things that come up in relationships, or patterns of the mind. And those are just a few areas. I don't know if you can think of anything else, but are there questions? Anybody have any questions you'd like to ask? It's a pretty broad range. You can pretty much ask anything you want. Yes.
So sometimes I'm noticing that there are some relationships which are not even significant ones, like not family, not close, just maybe just people you interact with maybe on a daily basis, or not even on a daily basis, but they hold a lot of space in your head. Like they just, and it's not a positive or negative, it's just constant. So there's some brooding that get it out, and then I feel like enough time and attention to spend. Internally on my energy, so it sort of overpowers normal energy.
Interesting. So let me see if I heard what you said, and then I'm going to see if we can have an example. So this is a question about people we might interact with, not a close relationship, a family member or a friend, but maybe someone we interact with on a daily basis or not, but it's not someone you feel particularly drawn to or averse to, but that the interactions with this person seem to stay in the mind and crowd out the opportunity to actually focus on yourself. Do you want to give an example, or should I try to form one? And it'd be kind of nice to make that more concrete.
Maybe 2-3 people like at work, just colleagues I've worked with, or maybe a manager, maybe a co-worker in the same team. And some of those interactions are more tense because obviously work situations can be, but that's in the moment. So we're maybe going back and forth, working it out. Some interactions are positive, it just depends on the day. So there's a lot of like, maybe I work a lot, so it's like 9 hours of maybe a lot of work. And then I think I'm just not able to get that aspect out of my life. So it's always sort of stuck in there.
So if it's people at work, of course, we spend so much of our waking hours at work that it's easy for the interactions that we have at work to kind of replay in our mind after we leave work. And for the behaviors of the people around us to have a lot of impact on us, even if we're not like we haven't chosen to be close to these people, but still it's a lot to process. Yeah, and so I think part of the question is, how do you let go of work when you leave? And one thing that comes to mind, and of course people might have this same kind of thing in different circumstances, but one thing that comes to mind is evaluating, and like when you do leave work, and some situation from work comes up in the mind, one way that you can address it is by looking at what might be wholesome or unwholesome in the interactions, and how you handle things. Put more attention on yourself than on others. But we can also learn from observing the behaviors of others. So noticing how you felt, if you think there's anything that you'd like to do differently in the future, that kind of thing. And try to see if you can create like a habit that's not too heavy, but kind of consistent, of being able to look, okay, that happened. It's just coming up in the mind. You're not forcing it. But that happened, okay, was it wholesome or unwholesome? What parts of it would be nice to improve upon? And then once you've examined it and you feel like you understand, how this basically relates to Dhamma, then when it comes up in the mind, like you already know what you want to do in the future. You already know kind of what got triggered in your emotional state. And then once that's the case, then when it comes up in the mind, see if you can dismiss those thoughts. Because when we give energy to them after they've been processed or after we understand them, then we just are creating the karma for them to come up again. So what can happen a lot of times is whatever is popping up in our mind, we give it energy, we follow it, and then, it's going to come up again and again because we keep perpetuating it. So if we know like, oh, when I think about, this person or this situation, even if I know everything I need to know about it, it's going to keep coming up. So then when it comes up, it's just a firm but gentle no, and turning the mind to something else.
I think I should try to observe it and let it go when it comes up, because it's become a cycle. It's reinforced on each other. And maybe I need to learn to accept that everybody has different behaviors and they function on their own ways and patterns, and not everything.
That's a really wonderful thing to accept. What was expressed there is just the accepting that everyone has their own patterns. Everybody sees things differently. We have different reactions. This is something I've been really interested in lately. I think I mentioned maybe at some point, but I'll tell you about it again. I happened to hear an episode of this, what's it called?
Aphantasia.
Yeah, it is, but it's
Lab.
Radio Lab on NPR. And the topic was aphantasia. So phantasia, spelled PH, phantasia, is the ability to imagine. And there's, most people have a certain amount of ability to imagine. And they talk about this in the program, like if someone says, imagine a red apple, you might have a picture in your mind of a red apple. And some people have really, what do I want to say, a strong ability to imagine detail. Like they'll see the red apple with a little bit of yellow and a little, and from a certain angle and all that. Some people would be more like, oh, you have a drawing of a red apple in your mind. And some people don't picture things at all. And it's like, it's kind of like poly instead of fantasia, it's aphantasia. They put an A on the beginning to negate it. So this aphantasia, I think it's pronounced. Aphantasia. This difference in the way we imagine things or don't it's a function of our particular brain. And then when we see things, we're gonna, or we think about things, or some idea comes up in the mind, we're gonna have, each of us may have somewhat different kind of way of processing or way of seeing. And to recognize that that's just natural, that's just a function of each of us being slightly different. And so this is a very good thing to remember. It's like, yeah, they don't see it the same way I see it. And that can be in all kinds of levels, psychologically, emotionally, all different kinds of reasons. But to really accept that and to know that much of that is outside our control. And then we also may have the ability, we might have the ability to try to take on the other person's perspective and perception and be able to try to understand where they're coming from. But there might be times, so this person who was doing this reporting, this had aphantasia, she realized as she's learning about this. And it's really quite sweet. You might look for it. If you look on NPR and you type in aphantasia and it's Radio Lab and listen to it. Because towards the end, I mean, first of all, she's talking with people who have really, really highly developed, or maybe developed isn't the right word, but a very strong ability to imagine. Like some people are reading a book and they're totally in the situation. They feel themselves in the image painted by the story. Or even this one person reported that they'll be so much imagining the whole world, feeling themselves in the whole world of what the book is describing, and able to walk into the next room and see what it looks like without it even being on the page. So like a really strong, one woman reported that when she's just like having a conversation with someone, she's also got a whole image story movie playing in the back of her mind that's just playing on its own. And then, this young woman who doesn't imagine images at all, at first is feeling kind of jealous, like she wished she could imagine. But then she starts to find out more, and she realizes that sometimes that can, in very rare cases, kind of lead you to not be able to know what's real and what's not real. And also, she said she has a meditation practice, and she doesn't have a lot of imagery impinging upon her mind when she's meditating. It's a very clean, open space. So it's kind of like, okay, we all have different makeup physically in our brains. I mean, now people can look at what part of the brain is stimulated by these things. And if we don't have much of that going on, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. But it's something to remember when people talk about things like seeing lights and seeing nimittas and going into jhanas. And the Buddha was like, not everybody gets awakened in the same way. Why? Because we're not all the same. And not everybody has those experiences. And maybe that's just because we're wired differently. And we can accept that. And we can pick up practices that suit our own character. So when I say learn who you are, start to understand how your mind works. And then make the most of that. Find the practices that the Buddha talked about that suit you. And Ajahn Chah apparently was a master at helping the people who were training with him in doing this. If someone really has a strong analytical part of the mind, they're very, like the thoughts are constantly there, then knowing how to use those thoughts to really develop their wisdom. Because it's seeing the way things actually are. That's what's important, to be able to let go of our attachments. I hope that's useful. I would recommend that particular journalistic report, journal, investigation. Yeah. And then having, like you said, more understanding and compassion for other people, appreciating that we're not all wired the same way.
So for the rain retreat, I think I would like to limit my use of entertainment. I think the problem I have is so when I'm on the internet, I usually only look at the positive stuff like music, dancing, cooking, um, and sometimes I even thought to myself, "Oh, this is like the pleasure of the deva." It's like these music where you know they talk about the Talantingsa.
Tawatingsa Devas,
Yeah, they're in
the
like
5 chords of sensual pleasure, and
yeah. I feel like-
amazing. And
yeah. So and I feel like truthfully, I don't feel like it's dangerous, or at least I don't feel that way. I don't feel like, oh, this is bad. It still feels good. Um, but it does get worse. Like let's say if I stay on YouTube for 2 hours, then it get worse. Very like obviously. So I feel like something is missing here. How can I correct my view? And same thing with food. Like let's say if I don't eat dinner, so and then the next day I'm expecting like when I have the first bite, it's gonna be the best thing because I haven't eaten in 12 hours. Like I'm always looking for that sweet spot. So
yeah, so noticing. So it sounds like what you want to do is maybe put some guardrails around entertainment and sensual enjoyment, and then watch yourself, right? And then, one way to practice with that is what is the gratification, what is the danger, and what is the escape? And you can watch the highs and lows, because the higher the highs, the lower the lows. And then it's not to like make everything, it's like to see that there's a peacefulness beyond that, and a kind of, so how about meditation? Does that bring you a lot of joy?
Yeah.
And you can look at, well, what's the difference between the joy of that first bite after not eating for 12 hours and the joy in however it comes up in your meditation practice. And I think what you were saying about, well, when the sensual stimulation goes too far, then it's definitely not pleasant anymore. And so these are all really good things to observe. And another thing to observe is what happens when I don't follow my normal habits, and then what comes up emotionally. And am I able to be present with what comes up emotionally? Because a lot of this seeking sensual pleasure and stimulation is about kind of hiding away from our fears, from our uncertainty. We want to get away from something. And I think this is why the three precepts plus celibacy, those training precepts, as part of the 8 precepts, really, it limits all the ways that you can escape from how you feel. Most of the fundamental ways that we use, I go eat something. If I feel uncomfortable, afraid or worried or anxious, maybe I'll go eat something, or maybe I'll turn on some entertainment, or you just notice that. Why am I doing it? Like, why do I want to eat this dessert or whatever? Why? It doesn't mean you shouldn't. It's just like when we know why, that's really helpful. So those are good things to reflect on as you practice. Thank you. Yes, Ariane?
Yeah. Hi. So, in terms of what I want to work on, I came into this already having an idea of like what I've been doing lately, which is actually dealing with lust and infatuation. And dealing with, there's sort of that going on in my head, but also like there's a counter narrative to that that's like, that is the most ridiculous infatuation you've ever had. Like, this is bad even by your standards. Like, you know, it's like just this war of like this intensely strong infatuation and an intensely strong counter infatuation. And I came to realize this past week that what I've been doing, and which is not helpful, is trying to sort of adjudicate between these two narratives and trying to figure out which narrative is correct, which should I go with. I really want to know the answer of how this is going to play out, and instead, I found more peace in simply just in patience and sort of having faith. Let's just see how this works out. Or doesn't work out, and not worry so much about the outcome and not try to look ahead to the future, just watch what's going on. And for me, it's actually been helpful to have faith-based practice, but really what it boils down to in terms of qualities is simply patience and not wanting to rush things. And I've noticed too, I was having a conversation lunch today about how like I walk really fast and I tend to get up and like really, I have a habit of just like getting up and just moving around very quickly. And when I chant, there's something about that slows me down. It's not an easy thing for me to commit to doing. So anyway, the bottom line is I think in terms of a container for my practice, this coming few months, I think I'm going to want to make it a chanting related thing.
Okay.
Even though, and it's just something that occurred to me just today when you mentioned that we're going to be chanting this, for some reason my mind lit up because I like the idea of chanting suttas actually, not just like things in the chanting book that are whatever, but actual suttas. So I've just been, right now, I'm now sort of thinking of what's a good, more specific container, what's a good commitment to make with this.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. That sounds really good. What?
Yeah. I said it does sound good.
It does sound good. Yeah, so last year when I was in Australia at Bodhinyana for the Vasa, it was at Jhana Grove, but the weekly meetings on Wednesday nights that Ajahn Brahm would give a talk, we'd chant a sutta. And they're the suttas in the chanting book, except I think there was one more added. So it's those first three, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Anatta-lakkhana Sutta, and the Fire Sermon. And then there was a fourth one. I think it might have been the Mangala Sutta. I don't remember, but you can look at those kinds of things. And I think it's great to chant suttas. I mean, chanting the words of the Buddha is so powerful.
And I find when I chant it too, the things that resonate me when I just read it are different than when I chant it. Like I know, like this is a sutta that content is familiar. It's like, oh well, that's of course the Four Noble Truths thing, duh.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize when like I was chanting it and then sort of going back reading the English, how much effort it spends talking about the consequence of when the sutta was given, and then the Dhamma eye arose, and it goes through all the deva levels and going, then the whole universe lit up. Like, wow, they really spent a lot of effort on talking about that specific
And
thing.
this has like mega ellipses.
Yeah.
If you could probably find the actual full text if you wanted to. The Sri Lankan monks will often chant the full text. It might have a good effect. You could check it out if you wanted to.
Yeah, I was wondering what exactly was.
The Deva part is the Brahma part was shortened This one,
Yeah,
it doesn't go up. To
Yeah,
the,
even the Deva parts
Oh,
are
okay.
condensed. Each layer is longer than that.
Maybe you could totally
Right,
master
right,
it, and then
right.
at the end of the 3 months, you could chant it for all of us.
Ooh.
That would be like super cool.
That would be
Without the
super cool.
Olympians, right?
But no performance required.
That would be so cool.
we will need to scroll.
Thanks for doing that, by the way, Martin. That was nice.
Yeah, that was great. You can tell I trust you. A lot.
Actually, there was a story about a 10-year-old boy in Sri Lanka. I don't know if you've heard
He
of
was
this
younger
one.
than that actually when it started,
4.
like 4.
Yeah, he,
something.
he could
Yeah.
miraculously recite the Dhammacakka full, like you said. You
And
know,
other suttas too, very complicated things.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's
they
like
have
a-
recordings. Have you
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
the recordings?
I have not, but
Uh-huh.
that's how I know that the sutta text is not complete because he recited the complete set. It's very long.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the ones that we usually chant, you can chant it in maybe 15-20 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing story, quite a testament to the understanding of rebirth as a reality.
Yeah, I think the father must have a little bit freaked out when the son could do that.
Yeah, he was recording him like, oh.
What language is this?
No, I bet he knew because he was Sri Lankan.
Oh yeah.
So he probably, knew what was going on, but not how can my 4-year-old be doing this?
But the style was funny too. It's like this
That's what
archaic style.
Bhikkhu Bodhi and Bhante Analayo said, if you look at the style of the chant, it's not a style that's used in this era. It's from old times.
The dad might have even been like, even more
Yeah.
because of that.
Doesn't sound like the Bhantes down the road, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the details, and I don't know them personally at all, but we know some people who know him, and yeah, he's a monk again now. Earlier he got married, and now I hear he's back in robes.
Oh.
Some things we just can't avoid. Been there before, I gotta go there again.
Is there a limit on how many times you can robe and disrobe?
Well, this would have been lifetimes ago.
Oh,
The
I see, I see.
previous.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there is a limit. The Buddha said 7 times.
Oh, okay. In one lifetime.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would hit that limit. It's
I'm sure people.
really.
Yeah.
Well, that's how the
Like
rule got
temporary
made.
ones, too.
Someone kept leaving and coming back.
Yeah. But
And
even
the
like
Buddha said,
temporary
okay, that's
ordination. people
Temporary
doing it.
ordination. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Sometimes people
Yep.
do that a few times.
Yeah, it's true. Most people aren't that flaky. Trying to, make life decisions.
Well, any other comments or questions?
Wait, that's one.
Do you have any recommendation for people finding this habit of snapping something when they're like when or at least when I think they're being
You think they're being they're-
yeah, like just like something irritating and then especially if I have to deal with it like a few times already, I think that like
yeah.
almost
Yeah,
like I
this-
couldn't control it, like it happened, like I know like after it happened and I wanna know it before it happened.
Yeah, so there is a way to try to change that kind of pattern. So the pattern that's being described is very common. I know it from my own experience too, to have, a kind of well, let's see, I'm thinking about it with my mom. So like, you get triggered, there's something that they say or do that you feel upset by or you don't like it. And then you find yourself snapping at them. And, maybe it's, irritation, or maybe it could be other underlying things. And you don't want to, and you feel bad about it later, probably. And this is just one example, but there are all kinds of ways in which we have these kind of such quick reactions that we don't want to have. We want to change that, but it feels like it's almost automatic. And for some people, it's going into a very strong anger, or can be even abusive behaviors. And how do you change that? And so, thinking about it when you're not upset or when you're not in the situation is important. And trying to recognize when what the feeling is like in your body when it starts to happen, before you actually snap. Like you can begin to be, you're really sharpening your mindfulness such that you're feeling it ahead of time. You feel like the agitation coming up, or maybe even you can anticipate being in that situation where this reaction happens before you go into the situation. Okay, I'm going to go into this situation, pre-program the mind. Okay, when this happens, and I want to really observe the feeling and hold back. And just hold back. And just then, the first few times maybe you can't do it. And you react. And then you stop. As soon as you notice, as soon as you can, you stop yourself. And then as soon as you have the chance, you replay that in your mind, and you replay it the way you would like to have acted. So even if this person is really being rude or whatever, even if it's something that really shouldn't be happening, you might think it shouldn't be happening. It still doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter how other people are acting so much. I mean, sometimes there are terrible consequences, and we want to do something to see if we can have some influence over that. But most of the time, it doesn't really matter what they're doing. What matters is that we develop the mastery of our own mind. So back to that phrase in the Dhammapada, the person who conquers, thousands of people, that's nothing. I mean, that's horrible even. But if you can conquer yourself, that's real mastery. That's really something to be respected. So you to replay it in your mind, and you can do this practice without having to wait for an incident. You can just pick an incident that has already occurred and take time and just try to play through it in your mind. And then think about how you want to respond and the feelings that you want to bring up. So whether it's patience, or it's compassion, or whatever the felt sense is that you would like to have become the pattern of the future. See if you can bring that up. But probably the main thing is, if we can train our mindfulness to observe when it's starting to happen in the system before the snapping, and then be able to be present with that. Okay, I can anticipate that this feeling is going to come up, and this reaction is going to follow if I don't put some kind of brakes on it, right? And then when that feeling comes up, I want to be able to develop my stamina, my capability of being present with that and not reacting. And it's a process. So then you find yourself going down the same old track, and it's okay. You forgive yourself. You go back. Okay, what did I do? How can I do that differently next time? And really don't give in to blaming yourself or feeling bad all of this conditioning that we have, comes from a long time ago. And, it's perfectly natural, ordinary. And it's up to us to bring it into the light, to really see it for what it is, to know that we don't want to use that method, and then make a new method and use it and see how it feels. And then we can continue like that. And we can work like that with so many different things that arise in us. Negative mental states. And if we go back to the Majjhima Nikaya, number 8, practicing effacement. Effacement means you're rubbing away the defilements, like you're taking an eraser and you're erasing the defilements, and you just can't strike it out with one scratch. You have to like really go erase it. And it doesn't happen through meditation. Meditation helps us to be more calm, gives us a little more space. But the Buddha starts out that sutta saying some people practice meditation and they have these, they think they're getting rid of their defilements, but they're not. And the Ajahn Gana says the same thing. People, put so much time and energy and everything and focus on their meditation practice, and then they get up from the cushion and they're angry at someone. And so we have to like really work with those particular things that arise in us. And that sutta, the Buddha says, if you are, your pattern happens to involve being irritated and, snapping at someone, the way to avoid it is to not snap at someone. It's going to be non-irritated now. How do I be non-irritated? Well, it's like I have to see that feeling of irritation, and I have to bring some loving kindness to that and care for myself and stamina and being able to be present with that. And then you gradually work it through. And every time you resist snapping at someone, it gets better, it gets stronger. And so he uses this, it's like there's this really rough path to get to your goal, and there's this really smooth one you can take. You get on the smooth one and take that. And the rough one, so it's fundamental, and it's been fundamental for thousands of years. So we aren't alone. And that's a great practice to pick up for a period of time and just see. And it's not going to end. If you say, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks, it's not going to end there, because you'll see the results and you'll change. And sometimes you can change this kind of thing a lot faster than you think. It really does work.
But I would need situations to trigger me to know how I do it.
Well, usually there's so many there, you don't have to look too far. It's like, but when you practice by remembering some, then you already make a lot of progress. And then when it happens, you've already got a chance that you're at least starting out on the smooth path. And maybe, there will be more. There's always something, no matter even you change your whole life, go into a completely different situation. This is what my son said when he became a monk. You go into the monastery and you think, I'm not going to have the same problems I had before. No, there's someone here who acts just like my sister. Of course, we've got that wiring, and something else is going to plug into it. But that's good. That gives us a chance to really resolve it. Let it go. Yeah.
Yeah, usually when I have this mindfulness of the anger coming up, I sense the physical hints. Yeah, I notice it more and more now, usually with my wife. But then, my jaw locks. Yeah. So that's the, like, immediately now I see, oh, okay, this is not going well. So, but sometimes she can't put on the brakes, so I have to physically take leave and take a walk.
Yes.
That breaks the pattern.
Yes.
And
that's right.
most of the time it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, the physical hints is the one that kind of like stops the momentum. Yeah,
Yeah,
my jaw locks, my teeth, my tongue, around my face is like she touched myself, like my sense of self. Usually that's the
yeah, when the sense of self gets threatened.
it's so yeah, she has a way to do it.
Oh, yeah. Those people we love, they're the best at it. They know exactly where,
Yeah, I can hang out with you guys, no problem. But then when it comes to her, she's
but just try living with us. It'll be the same thing.
Like we all live here now? Like
Well, that would be interesting. Hey, 3 months. We can. Oh, boy. Who's coming?
we only have one bathroom.
Oh, yeah, that'll be really good. Super test.
Paul is coming.
All right. Yeah,
I think
yeah.
Kay's coming too. She looks pretty stoked.
Oh, yeah. But that's really right. You feel it. Once you become aware, like what is it that leads up to it? The example I give, do you know what it feels like just before you're gonna vomit? When my mom, I can say this, she's passed away now. She was kind of a little bit obsessive compulsive around cleanliness. And when I was a kid, if I was had like a flu or I was sick to my stomach, I was required to make it to the toilet to throw up. There was no like bowl that you could have in your bed because it splashes too much. So, if I didn't make it, then I heard about it. And, you're a little kid, you want to please your mom. So I felt like, okay, I gotta figure out the warning signs so that I know when I'm about to throw up. So I get to the bathroom on time. And that's what we have to do with all of these things. Learn what the warning signs are. Like you get the saliva starts going, then it's like, okay, got to get there now. It's like, yeah. So yeah, good training. Everything in our life we can use for training.
Practice of anapanasati is a continuous practice. You can stop all these external thoughts in mind.
Sometimes.
Because of the breathing, concentration on breathing, we are stopping the contact of six sense organs with their respective objects.
As long as it really, this is really good. And we want to be aware if it really is resolving things internally or not, because if our sense of self gets poked and we still have a sense of self, because anapanasati is not going to get rid of that, then we need to practice in more ways than just anapanasati. And we have to really look directly at that dukkha, like the first 3 noble truths. We have to look at that dukkha. Anapanasati is a very, very valuable tool, but it doesn't take care of everything. And so, like, how to turn towards the dukkha and be present with it and understand it completely. This is very important. And then to really see the cause underneath. And that's really what we're getting at with this conversation. It's like when the jaw clenches and the sense of self has been threatened, and then you can walk away and you let that clear, because it takes some time, because there's a lot of chemicals. You know this very well, both of you. And then those chemicals are running around the body, right? It takes time for that to settle down. And then we can look at that sense of self. So I have an idea of me and mine that is not correct, because there is no self, really. Then we have to work with that reality. And anapanasati, that helps us to develop our mindfulness. And then we use the mindfulness to understand that feeling and that process that causes us to think we are someone with, ownership of things. So that's the real crux of the misunderstanding that we have of reality that causes us to suffer. Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that's the fourth tetrad?
Yes, there is reflection on Dhamma there. That's true. Good point. I mean, Anapanasati, really, if you take it to its maximum, you can do it, all of it. But it's still, you still have to be willing to be with and being with feeling. But it's not, in Anapanasati, you hear about being with the feelings of piti and all that, getting to samadhi. But that investigation of feeling in that other way, where you're really looking at the problems. That's why I think of Anapanasati as the jumping off point sometimes into these other practices. It's not all specifically right there, but it's opens the way to that. Yeah, that's a very good point.
I was listening to something that Ajahn Anand was saying, and it's like also something about this going back and forth, like practicing Anapanasati and then going back to, said, like investigation of the body and then going back to Anapanasati.
Yeah.
I like that as a movement with
Yeah.
the practice.
Yep. That's really good. I mean, that's really what's intended, and you'll see that in Ajahn Chah's descriptions too, where you take the mind to whatever depth it's willing to go in terms of samadhi, and then it stops, and it might stop on a regular basis at that point, and then at that point you investigate. And then you investigate, and then you go back into samadhi. Yeah, Ajahn Anand also said that when we visited him last year.
Yeah. That's part of what I'm planning on doing, just to share. Can you guys hear me? Good enough. Okay, cool. Like, so I think what I'm gonna do for the Vasa is like a couple of things. I'm gonna try. I don't know if I'm gonna succeed at this, but I'm gonna try going to Ajahn Anand's morning Dharma class. So it's for them, it's 7 o'clock in the evening, but for us, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, for us in California, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. And he does it 7 days a week, chanting. Mahesh has been going, chanting and meditation, and then Dharma talk and questions and answers on Friday as a way to really settle in that way. And then I want to really, I think, work with 2 different things, like investigation of the body. I don't think I should say the whole thing here, but I had something come up that I've been working with that I think it's going to give me a different access point in. So I'm really interested in doing that. And similar to you, Wang, I'm gonna I tend to, after I've been working a long day, I'm tired, I'll go on the Yahoo news feed and just look at the news, but in a very, it's almost like music. Like I'm not drinking, I'm not eating at that time or anything like that, but I'll I'll go on the floor, just distract my back, sit there on the phone. So I'm gonna not do that. I'm gonna watch Democracy Now! Each day. I'm limited.
Well, maybe just every other day.
You mean the scrolling? I don't want to.
No, the Democracy Now! Even.
Oh, even Democracy
You can
Now!
start with Democracy Now! Every day and then see if you want to skip days.
Skip a day of Democracy Now!
You have the 5-minute news summary on NPR.
5 minutes, yeah.
Oh,
I think I would really miss Amy Goodman. But yeah, maybe
just
I'll
a thought.
see.
Start with only Democracy Now! Daily. And then for some period of time, and then evaluate, do I want to go for Democracy Now! 4 days a week?
It's only 5 days a week anyway.
Oh, 3 days a week?
Okay. All right. I'll
Something.
Yeah, maybe I can even go less than that and still be.
Yeah.
It's important for me to still be engaged in what's actually happening.
Except that if you disengage for a while and then you re-engage, it's like giving up a soap opera and then coming back to it. It's like nothing's really happened.
Yeah.
In a sense, you just, you catch up and
Yes, I
sort
remember at the end of a month long once, one of the teachers reading a piece of the news that hadn't, nobody had heard the news for 1 month. And it was like that. It was like, well, not much was right.
Yeah,
But I think I'm still refining a little bit. I think
That's
like,
okay.
that's no, not about the news, but I mean just about like the focus. And I think in connection with the other anger types here, I think that part of the body contemplation, I'm hearing Biko and Nalio saying, I'd asked him a question once about an anger that arose in me, and he said that really practicing the not self and the emptiness is really one of the best answers to the anger, the irritation and ill will that arises, because once you're really connected to that,
it has no place to
it has no
stand.
place to stick.
Yeah,
So I'm hoping that the body will also help with that. So that's the whole piece. So that's what I'll be doing. I thought I should
thank you.
share with everybody. Thank you.
Anybody else want to share what they plan to do? Anybody else? Yes, Lillian?
Mine is kind of similar.
Oh, okay, Kay, go ahead.
So I'm definitely feeling very drawn to limit the news, and not do any of the doom scrolling things that I know just kind of feed the fear and the anxiety. So trying to be more, just move more skillfully, with that area. And then the Sangha that I'm part of here in Louisville, they meet each day at different times, depending on the day, and have a 30-minute sit. And so that's something that I don't always consistently do, but my heart just kind of calls me all the time to consistently do it. I guess I just haven't got to that maturity level yet with my practice. And so I just feel that. I feel that calling. It's like time to step up, time to kind of move into that next phase, of growth or whatever it is with my practice. So committing to meeting with the Sangha online and just sitting, we just support each other in our practice.
Nice.
And then the third thing I'm going to try and renounce, and I've never tried this one, so we'll see, but I'm going to try and cut myself some slack on learning to live with chronic illness. I'm just a few years into learning how to manage that, and it humbles me daily. So that's something, and I'm really hard on myself. Like, you should have done better. This shouldn't have been like this. That kind of thing. So just trying to some loving kindness for myself as the process unfolds. So thank you.
Great, Kay. Thank you. Beautiful. Lillian, are you there?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I really enjoyed the retreat container, and I think what worked for me is that I didn't have to think about where I need to be. At any time of day, there's always a bell, And when I'm left to my own devices, when I came back, and there's just no schedule, my mind is all over the place, and I don't, for the next 3 months, I'd like to be a little bit more disciplined about sits. I do sit twice a day, but it's kind of random. I mean, the morning is not random. I mean, I basically sit before I even get out of bed. So I don't get out of bed until I sit for at least, 30 minutes, 45. So that's good. But at night though, wow, it's just anything goes. It's really bad. Like, I don't have dinner, so I have a really long afternoon after I log out of my work computer, and it just stretches, and I just wonder, like, a lot of times I'm not even really on my device, but I don't know where the time goes. It's really bad. So I was wondering if you could give me some ideas about sticking to a schedule in the afternoon when I'm a little drowsy, and I don't know I just lose track of time, and then it's nighttime. I don't know where the afternoon goes. Thanks.
I think what might be helpful, if you're willing, is to find a group that's sitting at that time. And then you can just tune into it. see what's happening. I mean, we've got access to all over the world, so there's probably something. Yeah, Mayor.
Hey Lillian, Viku Bodhi does a sit on our time Wednesdays, 4:00. 7:00 in New York, but you can go to it online, and he does a little instruction and then a sit. It's a full hour, so from 4 to 5 is what.
Cool, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's just Wednesdays.
Yeah. Oh, just Wednesdays. So you might find something that's happening more regularly because there's so much out there. And then the other thing you can try is on your own, setting a timer for when you'll sit and just do it. It's harder on your own. You could team up with someone else who wants to do it and do it online together.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't have the discipline to do it on my own. I mean, same with sutta studies. Left to my own devices, I would never open a book. I'm kind of like that.
Yeah, you might want to check with people on the WhatsApp group or wherever, Clear Mountain, or just see if there's somebody else who wants to sit at a time that's convenient for you, and then you put that as a stake in the ground for some period of time and see how it goes.
Thank you so much for everyone who gave me some guidance. Look forward to the next 3 months of putting this in place. Thanks.
Great. And I will be offering the Saturday morning. Oh, Clear Mountain has a daily sit at 5 p.m.
Oh, daily at 5.
45 minutes it's on. Is that right?
Yeah.
That sounds great.
That's not good.
5 p.m., 45 minutes every day. Yeah. Sutta study online. Yeah, there's a
And then the
playlist.
live sit at 4:00 on Wednesdays.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, great. Thank you. So, I will be doing the 9 a.m. to 10:30 every Saturday morning, and there'll be time for questions, I'm sure. So I'll be available to talk about any problems you're having if you want to know. And Paula?
Are we out of time? I don't want to.
We're kind of out of time, but let's just
Yeah.
go ahead. Not really. I mean, we're sliding a little today.
Yeah, I've been trying to work on what I'll be doing, and I was kind of excited to think about it in terms of the Eightfold Path, like in terms of, okay, what am I doing for Sila? What am I doing for Samadhi? What am I doing for Panya? In terms of that same fear and anxiety thing. But I came up with Sila. I'm working on practicing and studying right speech with Oren Sofer. So that's my Sila part. My Samadhi part, it's kind of along the lines of everybody else. Maybe I think Ariana started out with talking about puja chanting. And I just loved the chanting today. So I just wanted to mention that made an impression on me. And it just felt so good. I thought I should do that at least once a day. And then in the Samadhi, also mindfulness of the episodes when I'm having anxiety and fear, just really noticing them. And I don't know if I'm just getting too complicated with my adhitthana and becoming a workaholic about it. So just let me know, how I get feeling it in the body. Where does it come from and why? But we talked about this. This is my work. And then the Panya part, reading the book that we had talked about, mindfulness, I think, of disease and death, and also just exploring and practicing the Four Noble Truths in relation to my anxiety and fear.
Yeah.
The right intention being just letting go. So it's really kind of an abstract adhitthana, but so I don't quite.
I don't know. It seems fairly concrete to me.
Yeah.
I mean, your right speech practice is clearly defined because you're doing it together in this, container. So that's clearly defined. The other things that you talked about, I think you're going to get more defined as you use them. And like you said, you don't want to start to proliferate and add more things on, but using using mindfulness and reflecting on, you know, what's happening in light of like 3 characteristics. Like you're reading that book on mindfully facing disease and death, you're going to have some good kind of panya motivation there. So I think you don't have to get any more complex than that. And as you use it, it's going to be very concrete, I think.
Yeah. It sounds good.
It sounds good.
Yeah, thanks. I was just really so excited when I thought, oh my, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, where have you been all my life? I am so ready for you.
Yay! That's great.
So
That's great. And
Thank you.
chanting that, that's wonderful. I'm glad that struck a chord, and doing that daily.
yeah, I think it'll help. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, everyone. Thank you. I think we'll chant a blessing, and you'll see me online. I don't know if you'll see Ayya Chitananda. I think she's going to fade into the woods to be pretty unavailable. And that's great.
Can I just
Okay, well, so we're going to do a little bit of little extra chanting for blessing for all of you for this 3 months of Rain's residence and practice. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Jayanto bodhiyamule sagyanana divadado ewan tavan vijayo ho hijaya sujaya mangale aparajita palanke sise patavipokare abhiseke sababudana agapato pamodati sunakata sumangalang supapatang suhutitam sukano samahuto chasuitam brahmachari supadakinam kaya kamang vacha kamang padakina mano kamang panidite padakina nikat wanalapantate padakine. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Buddhas, may you ever be well. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Dhamma, may you ever be well. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Sangha, may you ever be well. And then we'll finish paying respects to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Gaviwadi Swagato Bhagavata Dhamma Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami.
And let's do 3 vows to our teachers. Okay, bow together.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Have a great rains. Even if there's no rains. Hopefully there will be. Maybe at some point. I'll start to get some.